Today we're looking at the top 5 mana rocks that no one's playing that they probably should be. And I get it, I'm a brewer, I fall into the same pitfalls as everyone else. I'm gonna use what works. As soon as I start building a deck, I just throw in your Nature's Lure, your Farseek, your 3 Visits, then your Talismans, and even your Signets, just because that's what's tried and true and that's what's worked forever, and it will continue to work. But at the end of the day, that's why people call them vegetables. They're boring and they're just a necessary evil that we have to do whenever we're building a deck. So today, I wanna try to focus on adding spice to the deck while adding the key pieces that we need to make the deck work. So without further ado, let's get into this first mana rock with the Iron Crag. Right out of the gate, pretty good here. It's 2 CMC, which is the going rate, and then it does tap for 1 mana. So we're spending 2 mana to get 1 mana and it doesn't even enter tapped. And then it's got a pretty busted ability that whenever you cast a legendary creature, you may have it turn into a legendary artifact that gives your creature +3/+3 and has equip 3. And then it's going to lose all other abilities, so it's not a mana rock anymore. I wrote this card off when it first came out, mostly because I can't read. Yeah, I missed the quotation marks before where it says and loses all other abilities. I literally thought this was a legendary artifact where you equip it to your commander, it gives it +3 and then your commander loses all its abilities. That's not what this does at all. It just loses the ability to tap for mana, and then you know your commander is going to keep all of its abilities. It's just going to have +3/+3, which is amazing in those decks where we have combat triggers, whether it be an attack trigger or a combat damage trigger. These triggers are very crucial to our game plan 9 times out of 10, and we really don't want our commander to get chump blocked and killed. So in those decks where you have a very small commander and you're trying to get through, trying to get that value out of it, this is going to be a perfect mana rock to shove in that deck. Additionally, if you have a 4 power commander that has some evasion on it, I would consider this as well, because this is going to buff your commander up to that 7 power mark, which is where it's going to become a 3-hit KO with that commander damage, which is always notable. I always look for the commanders with 7 power because that's where commander damage actually starts to make sense as a win con. Staying in the same vein, I want to talk about Ebony Fly, because this is going to be amazing for, again, those commanders that have those combat damage triggers that need to get off, whether it be attacking or dealing combat damage. Now let's go over what this is. This is a 2 CMC artifact that taps for 1 generic. So the only thing you're really going to lose on is the color fixing that the signets and talismans give you, because 9 times out of 10, if you cast a signet turn 2, you're not going to be able to tap it for mana anyway. So the fact that it enters in tapped is a little bit of a downside, but it's not huge in the grand scheme of things. And then you can pay 4 mana to reanimate this by rolling a d6. This is going to reanimate it, turn it into that fly creature, and then it has flying, you attack with it, and it gives another creature flying. So again, this can give your commander evasion to ensure that you're getting those combat triggers that you need. Additionally, it's already seeing play in those dice rolling decks, so if you have a dice rolling deck, throw it in there, but I think it could be having some more play in, again, those combat damage centric decks. Moving on, let's talk about a mana rock that's already seeing play, but I think it needs to see more play, and that's going to be Liquid Metal Torque. Now what's amazing about this card is it's 2 CMC, so it's already what we want in our mana rock, ramping turn 2, and it taps for 1 generic. So the rate of the return is exactly the same as our signets. It just doesn't have that color fixing again. Now, another thing it does is it can turn any permanent into an artifact. So this is amazing in your monocolor strategies like green and red that struggle to get rid of anything or a certain type of permanent, right? Red is amazing at getting rid of artifacts. There's a ton of artifact removal in red, and then you're gonna struggle to get rid of creatures once they start being out of your shock range, right? If it's above 3 power, creatures start getting really hard to deal with, but as long as we can turn them into artifacts, there is a plethora of ways in red to get rid of any artifact. Notably, this is good in a pod as well, right? Think about us having Liquid Metal Torque on the battlefield, and then I want you to think about all the ways there are to remove artifacts in Magic. Green's abundant, white's abundant, there's even some in blue, and there's a ton in red, right? So if you say, hey, I can turn that into an artifact if you can destroy it, 9 times out of 10, your opponent is going to have removal for an artifact before they have removal for a creature, just because of the abundancy, right? So it's very good politically, and then additionally, you can do some janky stuff by turning your stuff into an artifact. For those modular strategies, it's really good if your commander's not an artifact. So it's already seeing some cool janky play, but I think it needs to be included in more mono decks that just struggle to get rid of certain permanents, and this is going to help round your deck out significantly. Another card I'd really really like to talk about that I've been having a ton of success with is Wand of the World Soul. Now bear with me because this is a 3 CMC mana ramp artifact, but what you get for that is going to be insane. So it's 3 CMC, 2 generic, and a white, and then it taps for a white, and it does enter untapped, regrettably. But you can also tap it to give one of your spells Convoke. So half of the goal in Magic, especially in casual, is getting to the point where you can cast multiple spells a turn. And whenever you can give one of your spells Convoke and you have a go wide strategy, that can outright cast a spell for free 9 times out of 10. Because remember, Convoke can pay for the colored pips as long as the creature you're tapping for mana has the same color of the spell you're trying to cast, right? And 9 times out of 10 it really does. So as long as we're able to tap this and give one of our spells Convoke, it basically reads like as long as you have enough creatures on the battlefield, you can cheat at least one spell into play a turn, which is way worth running a 3 CMC artifact that sometimes just taps for a mana. I think people really need to be giving this card a shot. It's done some insane things for me. Moving on to the number 1 card I think you guys should be playing that's a mana rock, it's Crowded Crypt. Now this is a 3 CMC artifact, 2 generic and a black, and then it taps for a black and it doesn't enter untapped. So we're solid there. And then it says whenever a creature you control dies, put a counter on Crowded Crypt. And then for 6 mana, you can sacrifice Crowded Crypt and it's going to give you a bunch of decayed zombies equal to the amount of counters on it. Now that I've read the card, I want you to forget everything I just read to you and I want to ask you a question. Would you run a 3 CMC artifact that's a mana rock that said pay 6 mana, double all of your die triggers this turn? Because if you say yes to that, Crowded Crypt is better than that. And the reason it's better is because you can stack up the counters amongst a number of turns instead of just one turn, right? So turn 2 or turn 3 you play this and then you start your aristocrat strategies, you start sacrificing creatures, you get counters on this, and then late game when you're going for the win, you've got Sir Conrad on the battlefield, you go ahead and pay 6 and you get a bunch of zombies and you're basically going to double up on all of your die triggers that turn. And again, it reads weird to where your opponents don't necessarily see it coming, and then 6 mana seems so far away so they don't necessarily care. But with 1 Ashnod's Altar, 6 mana is a lot closer than you think, and then you're off to the races and you're ready to start sacrificing all of your creatures and you're going to win in these aristocrat strategies. Additionally, any deck that cares about sacrificing a lot of creatures for value, such as your Corvold effects, which Corvold is basically an aristocrat deck anyway, it's just the payoffs card draw instead of, you know, draining all your opponents. I think this card deserves a slot. It's not too much of a tempo loss to play this turn 3 instead of turn 2 when everybody else is ramping, and I also think the pros way outweigh the cons of running this instead of a regular Signet. So I'm really excited to hear what you guys think about this card in particular, because I think it's going to put in a ton of work once people start playing it more. With that being said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to leave more top 5 ideas in the comments down below. I really enjoy doing these videos, so maybe if you leave a top 5 idea and it gets most likes, I'll go ahead and do it on that category. With that being said, I would like to shout out my patrons, Newsome, Excessum, Irrelevant, Chicken Salad, and Prater. You guys are amazing. I hope this helped you guys in your deck building endeavors, and I will see you all in the next one.